Welcome to Mac and Blue, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and J.J. Levinsky, aka Mac and Blue.
Welcome to Mac and Blue, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona. I'm Robert Johnson, Vice President, Business Development with Torrey Contracting. The guy there in the lower corner, right-hand corner on my screen, is J.J. Levinsky, President of Blue Wave General Contracting. What's up, J.J.?
Hey, buddy. How are you today?
Doing well. It's much warmer than it is, I believe, where our guest Tim Dufault from Concert. He is co-founder and chief revenue officer. Welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here. And we're pretty warm today, so.
You're warm. Yeah. Now, what's pretty warm today for you?
Heat index is 102. So.
Oh, that is actually pretty warm. Now, I think it's probably 115 or something crazy here today, but yeah, that is pretty warm for you. And
I still don't miss the humidity, though.
It's a lot of humidity.
Yeah, and you are in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome. Tell us a little bit about Concert.
Yeah, happy to, and appreciate having the opportunity to share some time with you guys today, because there's a really interesting shift that's happening in design and construction, and that's what led us to create Concert in the first place. So I am an architect by training. I actually was CEO of a large architecture firm called Cunningham that has offices around the country, and was CEO there for 15 years. I've been in the business for almost 40 years and worked in a lot of different components of architecture and design, but really functionally was focused on where are we going as an industry, and then where was Cunningham going as an individual firm for the last 15 years. And what I really started to see was we've got a huge disconnect in design and construction. And it's just been frustrating in many different ways, because we're responsible for doing things that are amazing. We're responsible for really building communities around the country, around the world. We have the opportunity to work with some amazing clients, and we do things for them that help solve their business and institutional problems. But it's just sort of it's a mess. I mean, the process of design and construction is so full of inefficiency and so full of miscommunication and just absolute mistranslation, arguments, pushing and shoving and finger pointing. It's frustrating as a professional to go to work every day and just have to deal with that as a mechanism for what we're trying to do for our clients around the country and around the world. So a couple of years ago, I was having a conversation with one of the larger contractors in the Twin Cities, and this contractor just sort of asked this question, said, why is it that architects won't share their information with contractors? We will issue the plans and specifications. Those are the official documents that everything's supposed to be built from.
Right.
But we develop so much more information in the process of creating those plans and specifications. For the last 10 years, we've been building virtual versions of our buildings as part of the design process. We've been using that for communicating with our clients. We're putting tremendous amounts of data and information about that building into that virtual version. And then we deprecate it out to a two-dimensional floor plan and some specifications, and then we hand it to the contractors and say, here, go build it, I dare you.
And that's where the blame game starts. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then the craziest thing of all is then the contractor goes and takes those two-dimensional drawings and they build their own three-dimensional model of it. And it's like, this is insane. Why are we doing this? We should not be wasting the time. We shouldn't be wasting the energy. And we certainly shouldn't be wasting all of the information that could be shared across the design and construction ecosystem. So that's what led us to say, there has to be a way we can do this. There has to be a way that we as architects can share our information, knowing what we're sharing, being able to stand behind that with the power of our license, and to be able to be comfortable enough that when I share something with you, I can go back, I have a record, and that record can't be changed, it can't be deleted, it can't be manipulated in any way, shape, or form. And that's what led us to really form Concert at the genesis at that moment. And
so Tim, so just to repeat, how many years ago was that you really
That's
started?
Just 3 years ago. I was
okay.
Right.
Okay.
Basically April of 2019, we had this conversation, and my CTO at the time, who's now also with Concert, Adam Obrecht, and we went out to Silicon Valley, and we met with some really, really smart people out there. We said, we think there's got to be a way to do this. We think there's got to be a mechanism, and what it comes down to is, how do we digitally sign data? Because in the realm of architecture design, we sign the drawings, we sign the specifications, and that's our license. That's what we use as the mechanism to say, this is the information of record, this is the information that you have the reliance to build on. And so what we're saying is like, well, let's just take away that whole step right there and say, no, we want to sign that digital information and in its entirety, and we want to create a record that allows us to go back and say, on this date, I gave you this information, and that information was to be used for this purpose and this purpose only. So you have that record. And what we really believed at the time was, we think blockchain has the capacity to do this. And we had some conversations with the folks out in Silicon Valley, and they said, there's a lot of things that blockchain has been thought of and that people have asked about. We could use blockchain for this. And there's a lot of it's like, no, that's not a good use for this. But they said, this is exactly what blockchain would be perfect for. And amazing. So that was the start of the journey, April of 2019.
So let me just interject here for a minute. So for our audience, I met Tim a while back, and the irony is we probably should have met 20 years ago, because we ran in the same circles in the upper Midwest for a long time. And most everyone knows who Cunningham is in the A&E world. And Tim and I have tons of mutual friends, yet we never worked on any projects together, because when I was in the Midwest, we were working on things that weren't in the Cunningham repertoire per se. But it was so cool, as we had some mutual friends introduce us. And ever since that, I would say that Tim and I have been geeking out together on everything related to blockchain, everything that we're going to talk about in Concert here. And that's why I reached out to see if he would be part of this Building Arizona, because he's represented clients that are here. This isn't central or centric just to Arizona. This is worldwide, but just wanting to bring it home to our audience here in Arizona and nationwide. So that was I probably should have started that earlier. But even up until a few weeks ago, we have a mutual friend, Tim and I, where he flew in from California, and to say that we geeked out on the future of this is kind of an understatement. When we start playing the geek out game, most people are just going, "You guys are nuts," but it's not nuts. And with that, throughout the rest of this podcast, I hope to see that, or I hope the audience realizes that what Tim is onto is a pragmatic solution for a real world problem. And so having said all that, Tim, now let's go back to give the audience a perspective of like those Silicon Valley days. Like then what? Like then what happened? Did you go and start right away? And what did that process look like? Or were you deflated? Did you have to go back and do a mind map of how you're going to conquer this? I mean, give us a sense of what you had to overcome.
With everything, when you got a great idea, the first thing you really need to do is understand, is there something out there already like this? And, Adam and I did a lot of exploring about the different mechanisms, different systems that are already in the marketplace that serve design and construction, and do any of them do what we believe we need to get done with this idea? And yeah, there are a lot of information sharing platforms that are used in design and construction. There are a lot of, there's a big discussion these days about common data environments. That, the whole idea being is that all of the data for a or design and construction project is stored in one location so that everybody can go and get the most current information, and it's always accessible to the project team. there's obviously there are signature softwares out there, DocuSign or something like that. The mechanisms exist to digitally sign things. There are mechanisms that exist to record what a file contains, or what the characteristics of a file are at a moment in time. So all of these systems exist, but the reality is all of them fall short of getting to that level of trust and confidence that you have to have when you're talking about an architect signing information with the power of their license. I think this is one of the pieces that I'm not sure that the general public understands, is really what architects are responsible for. I was listening to your podcast last week, and you talked a little bit about some liability issues.
Yeah.
And there's a huge liability that goes into the architect. I think you talked about, what if a building falls down? Well, the architect has responsibility besides, in addition to the contractor. So having something that you're signing as an architect, and you're signing with this license that fundamentally your entire life and your profession is built around, it's a big deal. It's a really important part of the process of certifying that you have met the rigorous requirements of building code, of the standards that are in the building industry, that you've taken all of the proper precautions to make sure that the building is designed to be robust, to protect people, and to serve the needs of the client.
Hey, Tim.
So
At a high level, for the audience's sake, what is the current state of digital signatories? I mean, you talked about DocuSign, but just educate the public about how that works in the Concert platform itself.
Sure. So if you look at DocuSign, the way DocuSign works is it's a replica of a paper transaction. Mm-hmm. When you sign a document in DocuSign, you're digitally, it's basically putting a digital copy of your signature on a digital copy of a piece of paper. And then DocuSign is recording the date, the time, your credentials based upon their verification, and then the size of the file at that moment in time. So that is the standard, if you will, in the signature market. What Concert does is we take it actually a complete whole other step further and say, we're not just simply going to look at how big was the file at the moment in time that you signed it. We're actually going to record what was every one and every zero inside of that file, and where were they located at that moment in time. So if 1 1 or 1 0, 1 byte inside of that file changes, it's not the same file. Mm. And that's a financial level of verification and rigor that, from the standpoint of my professional license, gives me great confidence that I can transfer, I can share something with you, I can sign it with my license, and I will always know. The second component of it is creating a permanent record. As much as the other softwares will create records of those files, they're stored on basically servers and like just everything else in the world, Amazon servers or Microsoft servers or whatever. What we do in Concert is we take and we create a digital record of every one and every zero, including your personal information, your verified identity, your verified license. We verify that your license is valid and you are able to sign this in whatever municipality or jurisdiction you're working in at that moment in time. And then we create an absolute, unbreakable, encrypted record of all of that information, all those ones and zeros embedded together. You cannot tear it apart, and you can't hack it. It's at a level of encryption that is impossible to hack. So that permanent record becomes literally a financial grade transaction.
And that's awesome. And where this really, my brain is or it exploded 10 minutes ago, but from being an older guy and been in construction, the way you started was absolutely on target. Always this pushback in the fight. Well, the business that I'm in currently is prefabricated cold form steel and doing wall panels and so forth. And the back and forth that happens, but when we're doing something, we're building models within Revit that get passed back and forth to an architect, an engineer, all these different people. I mean, clash detection and all the things that happen, there's no way to keep it straight if you're not doing something like this. And boy, can it go sideways fast. So I'm totally, I so want to do this on something so bad. We're going to find a way to do it. But yeah.
Well, hold on. That's perfect. Thanks for the intro, Robert, because I was trying to tee up like a case study or testimonial, and you did it. So when you hear that, Tim, how does the concert team take that struggle, like with what Robert's doing with Tori and let's say those groups? How would concert provide the solution in that framework, if you will?
So there's multiple mechanisms today that allow you to, in that BIM environment, to share that model and to work collaboratively inside of that model. Autodesk has 5 different products that allow you to do that. Mm-hmm. Again, it gets exactly what you say, where it's like, how do I know what the right one is? How do I know that I'm working on the right version at the right time and in the right place? And that's what Concert does, is it creates that fingerprint, basically, of the information that's important and should be used at that moment in time. And if you're sitting there working on a file, even if you're working in Autodesk Construction Cloud, you can drag that file over to Concert. And if the project's in Concert, even you're not logged in, you're just on an open web browser, drag that file into Concert. Concert will pop up and say, you're working on this file, it's version this, it was registered on this day by this person. It's version 24 of 46. You're not working on the most current version.
Yeah, that's the key right there.
That is the key.
Yeah.
And it will tell you the current version is, over here. And if you now, to get to it, you're gonna have to log in. You're gonna have to be part of the Concert platform. But the whole point is create the mechanism for that sharing to happen, and create the systems that allow everybody inside the project team to, at any point in time, just check, am I working on the most current information?
Tori Contracting, your full-service Division 9 contractor. Tori Contracting operates with a smaller, hands-on team. This cohesive structure results in superior workmanship and economical solutions. We deliver projects with unsurpassed commitment to quality and stewardship of budget. Tori Contracting, small enough to listen, big enough to deliver.
So Tim, as a list, like let's say we have a bunch of sophisticated listeners and the ones that were new to this, I think an obvious question is what do I need for systems to integrate within Concert? Can you address that at any level?
Nothing.
Right.
But
see how I teed you up for that, but that's
yeah.
But people are going to say, no way, Tim. I don't understand. So just give an example of make up a project and just explain why that is.
So Concert, there's been a lot of discussion about SaaS platforms. So SaaS just means software as a service, and that's basically, it's a web-based program. You don't have to have any software on your laptop or your desktop. You don't have to have any special capacities on your computers. It's a website that you're going to go to, and you're going to log in just like any other website that you log into. And Concert is also the mechanism. The entire mechanism is based upon recognizing the ones and zeros. And that's all done in the background inside of the Concert platform. So you don't it's agnostic to whatever the data that you're trying to check is. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. It could be a BIM model. It could be a fabrication model in a different fabricating software or a CNC type software. In structural, it could be a Tekla model. You could, any of those, any digital information that you have that you're using in the design and construction process can be verified, as long as it's recorded in the Concert platform, it can be verified. We do create a mechanism where you can store a record copy of that information at the moment that you record it, but you don't have to. The information can be stored on your computer. It could be stored on a server someplace else. The whole point being is that we're focusing on the record, creating that permanent record that can't be changed and that has the authorizing mechanism for how the information should be used.
So there'd be in utilizing this, and just to make it as simple as possible, if it gets, when you get down to construction, you're going to go to construction, there is absolutely no reason to come back and say, well, this was the last version I got. The sidewalks were on this side of the building. Now it's a retention basin. Theoretically, that just won't happen. Can't happen if you're using this type. And I'm using a rare instance, but not as rare as some people would think.
It happens all the time, doesn't it?
It really does. And I've had egg on my face. I know JJ has. I just, anybody that's been in the world has had that egg on their face. This to me is that, man, I can breathe a little bit easier. But by knowing, and once this becomes, at some point, and I guess I'm going to get ahead of myself here, but at some point, this is going to become the norm, where every single project you work on, this is what's happening. And so you will be used to the jargon, the versions, notes, things popping up. So absolutely amazing.
And I think, Robert, one of the keys is, let's go back to what Tim was talking about earlier. I'll just speak to it at a personal level. And you can you recognize it probably more than I do, Robert, within your specialty trade, is that, remember when Tim was talking about how everybody's modeling everything right now in 3D or XD, right? Mm-hmm. And then us dummies convert it back into 2D and then blow it back up again. That is the dumbest thing on the planet, right? So where I'm going with this is that what am I trying to say? I guess that interface, so that everyone can start not going through those extra steps to strip it back down to the chassis and then build it back up and have it different than what it originally was. That is just so paramount of how we're going to make this transition. Now, let me go down a different path, though. Tim, if you take all the sophisticated and unsophisticated general contractors, trade partners, architects, engineers, consultants, that's all well and good, because we're all kind of playing and moving towards this. Where has the difficulty been on the municipal side, as far as plan reviewers and permit providers and those municipalities that are doing the reviews? Do you see that in your short traction with Concert, have you been able to get over that bridge anywhere across the country yet?
We've been having conversations with a number of different code authorities around the country. We've talked to some folks out east. We talked to City of Minneapolis here, JJ. You probably, working with them. City of San Francisco. We've been reaching out to some, what we think are more likely AHJs or authorities having jurisdiction that are going to be willing to look at something like this. Almost all of them use, I think in the United States, there's one code submission software that Correct. Is used by, I think it's something like 65 or 75% of all the cities in the country. And it's all based upon submitting PDFs. And we also recognize too that there's a transition period here. I mean, paper documentation is not going to disappear overnight.
No.
There's still going to be, guys out in the field who are going to pull out a plan. and they're going to want to see a plan. All we're trying to do is create the mechanism at the front end that allows for that deeper sharing of digital information, so that when it comes to the fabrication, when it comes to the all the different subtrades, the major subtrades that are working in a building, that we can actually translate that information more effectively than trying to transcribe it into 2D and then have somebody else interpret it into something else. So, but jurisdictionally, the co-officials are a ways out. There's a lot of interest in moving this way. They know they're going to go this way. I think Mecklenburg County out in South Carolina is the most advanced in terms of that. They are actually requiring submitting the BIM model for your building permit at this point in time. There are softwares out there, and they're no different than clash detection softwares. There are softwares that can do an entire code review of the model and identify areas where there might be a conflict with the code inside the model.
So, but Tim, let me interject. But what you're saying makes absolute sense. But the number of engineers out there that don't work within Revit is amazing to me. So, I mean, like you say, there's a transition. So I apologize, but man, it's like, yeah, I know, but we're not even everybody on the same page using the software yet. So,
well, and again, that's why we're completely agnostic to what the data is. Mm-hmm. You could be working in a Bentley BIM, you could be working in Revit, you could be working in, any of the other BIM softwares that are out there. We don't care. I mean, the data is the data. Again, we're just looking at ones and zeros.
Yep.
And so it does become a mechanism that for the design and construction team, what's the thing that makes the most sense? I talked about Tekla before. Big structural programs, when you're doing some of these big buildings, Tekla is the standard for prefabrication of all of the steel components in a building. So a lot of the big engineers they'll take the Revit model and then they'll export it into Tekla, and they'll detail all the steel in Tekla.
Correct.
Right.
So those mechanisms exist for the different softwares to talk to each other. But again, you can record the Tekla model, and so now if I'm the fabricator, if I'm the steel fabricator, or as you talked about, Robert, if you're doing the steel studs, it's like, I want to know that I have the most current information for what I'm doing in my fabrication shop. And so if it's not, if I'm working off of a model that's 3 weeks old, I'm going to put the brakes on things right now and say, I need the most current information.
And the plumber needs it. If we've got a load-bearing structure, he's got to know, so he's not hitting a structural member. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, a great example of that just today. So JJ knows that I'm rebuilding my house, and I'm using Concert with my contractor. Now this is small scale residential. This is not, large commercial construction. But I made a bunch of changes to my power and lighting plans over the weekend because, just in conversations with the electrician and kind of what we're trying to get accomplished, we moved some things around. We changed some things and added some stuff, tied to low voltage and audio. That I made those changes. I uploaded everything to Concert this morning at 9 o'clock. At 9:01, the electrician had the updated drawings.
How does Tim? Talk to me in the audience about the notifications of. We understand what Concert does.
Right.
How does it communicate and disseminate?
So we have a mechanism that allows you to distribute the recorded information. And when you distribute, and I'm going to send it to 5 people, everybody who's on that distribution list is going to get an email. Hey, information's just been posted on Concert, that Tim wants you to go look at right now. And so, and there's an acknowledgement. They have to go in there and acknowledge, I looked at this.
And again, that gets recorded too.
Yep, that gets recorded. Yep. And it gets recorded in the blockchain. And I think this is one of the key components of blockchain, that the reason why we went down this path was because it creates this chain of custody.
Yep.
The information and how it was shared, who it was shared with, what happened to it when it was shared. And if it was changed, then share it again. So that we've just got this ongoing chain of custody. And so we know the relevance of all of the information at each step along the way. So now I can't force you to open up that email and acknowledge it, but I know if you haven't.
But
Amazing.
But again, then the culpability is transferred. That it's not. This is a different CYA. We're doing it for the betterment of the project and the dissemination of information, not to. This takes away the advantage of who's got more horsepower than the underpower type thing. It's very interesting.
Getting to the place where we get away from people having the wrong information in the field, and they start building something, and it's like it's wrong. And then we stand there and we argue about, well, whose fault is it that it's wrong?
Hey, Tim, I was curious, and I think the audience would be curious to know is this something that has to be put into, like, let's just say we're doing a design build project. Is this something that has to be put into the AIA or AGC or consensus docs contract language? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, JJ, because it's actually, we're literally on the verge of a major change, at least in terms of the AIA documents, about language around digital delivery. For those who know what is going on in terms of contract documents, they get updated every 10 years or so, and it takes that long because there's so much that goes into making sure the language is legally tested and everybody's not getting into problems with the language that's in the contract. It takes a long time to update. Well, AIA is about to release 2 major new updates to the AIA contract documents. The E203, which is it's the digital information document for AIA contracts, and the G203, which is called the Bim Execution Plan. Now, historically, these 2 documents represent how architects have shared digital information outside of the design team. And the way they've been structured is that E203, which says, I, as the architect, I will share information with you. But what it's really been for the last 10 years has been a document that says, the information that I'm sharing with you, you can use it if you want, but you can't rely on it. You have to rely on the plans and specifications. So using this information is going to be at your own risk. And in addition, as the architect, I'm going to strip information out of that model because the right of reliance is on the drawings, not on the model. And so therefore, I don't want to have anything in the model that I give you that might conflict with what the drawings say. So, because then we're going to get into an argument about, well, which is right, the model or the drawings. Up until this point in time, the drawings have always been the key. And so what's happening in the new update is the new E203 says the digital information is the contract. The digital information you have reliance on the digital information. This is a huge change. This is
about time. Yeah, that's huge.
Change.
Yeah.
And when this comes out later this year, overnight, now architects and contractors can be sharing information back and forth, and it's legally binding underneath the architect's contract with the owner. And so that's just a huge thing. And then the G203, which is the BIM Execution Plan. The BIM Execution Plan it's a mechanism to say, how are we going to use digital information in this process? How are we going to take what all of us are creating in terms of these digital artifacts, and how are we going to use it? How are we going to share it? How are we going to record it? How are we going to depend upon it? What can't we do with it? And then ultimately, what's the artifact at the end of the whole process? And for, you guys have worked in the industry for a long time, that typically the client wants a finished, an as-built product at the end of the project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's plans or specifications or a BIM model. Well, so if you're getting to a point now where it's like, we've got the E203 that says, The digital information is now right of reliance. The digital information is now the contract. The G203 becomes critically important because now it says, now you create this plan that says we're sharing this information. We're creating a permanent record of what we share at these milestones in the project. And so everybody is on the same page. And at the end, we have this combined data set of information about the design and construction of the project that the owner can rely upon for the use of managing facility management, operations, whatever they're going to use their information for. So all of that, just it absolutely game changing in terms of design and construction, and Concert's the only software that can do it.
Yeah.
So Tim, let's go down. The audience is interested in Concert and in your team. What is the typical? Walk us through like a typical consultation and engagement. Everything from take a few minutes here to describe how what someone else has done with you, whether it's an architect, an engineer, a contractor, whomever. I think everyone would just love to hear how that transformation goes with getting signed up with you.
So the core of what we're trying to work with our customers on is, how are you using digital information today? How are you sharing it? Because even though, again, models are not considered part of the contract documents today.
Right.
But JJ, as well as I do, the design build, that model's going back and forth. Robert, you talked about that. It's like the model's going back and forth all the time. So how are you doing that today? And then as we look at moving this into, now we're going to actually depend upon this information. We're going to sign it as the architect with our license. We're gonna make this contractual agreement that says we're going to do all this. What do you have to change to get to the place where you've got the rigor and you've got the capacity to confidently share that information and add and not take out stuff, in essence, not take out all the meat and leave you with just the bones, but really give you full access to all the information so that everybody can use it all the way through the process. So it's as much talking about how they do their work as anything else, and then really building fundamentally helping build that BIM execution plan, helping build that process of digital information sharing. And at what point in those processes does Concert come into play? I mean, we're not in a situation, we don't want everybody like every night when you quit, you save your project to Concert. That's not appropriate. That's not what the tool is there for. But there are those moments and times where it's like, we're at the end of schematic design. Record the project, record the information. We're at a point where we're making major decisions, record the information. We're at a point where we're issuing a component. We're issuing the metal stud package for prefabrication, record it, Concert. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with our customers to sort of identify those key milestones, those key points in time where it's like, this makes sense to create this permanent record, to start the chain of custody for the information so that we can go forward knowing confidently that we understand who said what, who shared what, when it was shared, and what it was to be used for.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
So let me challenge the audience to think about let's go down our crazy conversation, Tim, for a second. So within Concert and how you guys and gals looked at this and wanted to lay it out, can it manage the metaverse, the avatars, maybe even a digital twin of me in the future of making those decisions and the recordation of that? or maybe you already thought of all this, but entertain me with your answer.
Yeah, I love it when you get into the metaverse, JJ.
Okay.
It's like,
Well, I'm a lot better. I'm a lot better looking there than in person. Trust me.
you know, there's a lot of talk in the world of design about the metaverse, and even tied to that, all of these AR, VR, AI, and the different mechanisms that are going to come to play in design to help generate design ideas, generate design solutions, but then also use them in ways that are atypical to the design process. The whole AR VR piece that was pushed hard in the industry because for many people it's difficult to read a two-dimensional drawing. To really look at a floor plan and understand what am I looking at, what's it actually going to feel like, how is it going to work, is difficult. So in the early days we did renderings, right? We'd do a nice pretty artistic drawing of what the building's going to look like to help the client understand here's what you're getting. We'll do models. We in the time when I started, you built a model out of chipboard or out of balsa wood or something like that. And again, now you had the opportunity to sort of see things and move things around in 3 dimensions. Well, AR, VR were all extensions of those things. We're creating an artistic representation of what the building's going to look like, give you the opportunity to walk through it and to experience it with the VR, experience it in something that feels more realistic, feels more like you're actually walking through it instead of just looking at it on the screen. So all of that was intended to help communicate. But where it's gone is now we're creating these places, these communities that are actually 100% virtual, but they aren't ever going to be a physical environment. I think that there's a role for architecture and construction to play in that. But I think the reality is that what's going to be far more valuable in the metaverse side of the equation is being able to take all of that information that was created and collected during design and construction and to be able to, in real time, observe, model, and change what's happening in the building. We have digital control systems for buildings today. All of the big names are in that: Johnson Controls, Honeywell, whoever you want to name off.
Right.
Those systems have been around for years, and so I can turn up the heat, I can turn down the heat, I can turn on the AC, I can turn on the lights, I can turn off the lights. Those are simplistic functionalities of those systems. Where we're getting to, and as you mentioned, digital twin, JJ, we're getting to a place where we can create this virtual version of the building that can interact in real time because of the sensors that we have in buildings, because of the systems that and their interconnectedness, that we can change things and actually see in real time what happens. Beyond mechanical, electrical, plumbing, those sorts of things, we can actually get into how is the building being used. If you look at from in a real time observational standpoint, if I've got 2 floors of an office building and I've got I'm paying $30 a square foot for that space, and I'm start looking at how my office is being used, and I'm seeing like, wow, you know what, I really don't need 2 floors of an office building because 50% of my space is not being used 70% of the time. That's real data that can be tremendously valuable to that customer, that client, and they can use it to make real business decisions about whether or not are they going to expand, are they going to use the space differently. Do we have to maybe I've got 5 conference rooms that are overused 90% of the day. Maybe I need to build more or remodel and add more conference rooms. These are the real things that when you look at that virtual metaverse thing, you're getting into looking at the functional components of what we're doing day to day in all of our buildings around the world. Now there's another component in the metaverse side that's going to urban designers have really been focused on creating these interactive virtual communities that are based upon or tied to sensors in the real world. So again, you can start to model, you can start to test and validate ideas that you might be able to apply in the real world sense, but you're doing it first in the virtual world. So beyond that, are we going to get into gaming? Architects are already doing that. I mean, all the big name architects have already come out with designs for the metaverse that are intended to be basically just gaming platforms,
Right.
For whatever's going to be going on inside the metaverse.
Well, I know, and thanks for putting that into context, Tim, because my brain, the way it was working, was thinking about a real life application of, imagine you had, let's just take a hypothetical. Let's say you have 10 people, you can have all their digital twins. You get that modeled, you interact that with what you're talking about in the metaverse. You can test it all ahead of time, which is so cool, and get the biometric feedback, all that kind of stuff. And then the team has unparalleled data to then go back to, the capital stack, the development team, the municipality, the us as contractors, the A&E team. We are just given so many more tools to effectuate something that is so powerful that I don't think the common layperson can comprehend where this is going. And like Robert said, if two old geezers, well, I'll throw you in, if three old geezers like us can crack this code, can you imagine what the generations below us, if we just give them these tools, they will flourish with this at a rate that, quite honestly, I'm excited because our industry is so desperate for it. Back to what you said is, I'm so tired of living in a CYA world. I want to have unity and collaboration and go forward with, instead of tripping over the dollar to pick up the nickel, I want the nickel invested to recoup the dollar. And I just think that this is a wonderful way of getting there. And I can't thank you enough for taking the leap of faith to get Concert going, because I know, for the audience, to let you know that Tim's team and I got to be careful on the air here, but we're definitely going to be doing this for one of our clients in the future, because we're just getting inundated with, by not having Concert at our forefront, we can't keep track of the changes. I mean, design, build, fix doesn't even put it in perspective right now. It's like design, build, fix while the plane's flying, while the parts are being airdropped in from China. One of those things.
Yep.
So anyway,
this gets so huge. I mean, and I genuinely am the old guy here, and it was really tough for me to understand until we got into really working so closely with architects and engineers and the design team, and providing models initially, because they're load bearing and they're wall panels and all that, going back and forth, and the numbers of times already that we've had, oh, well, no, I sent you that one. This one has all those last changes, and we shifted the floor trusses 6 inches in the last one. Well, no, I don't have that. Oh, well, I can't find it now. We got to do that work all over again. It just gets mind-numbingly stupid at some point, and quite honestly, just a massive waste of money and time. So, yeah, I'm so ready. I'm with JJ. We need to we need to be pushing this to everybody and anybody that'll listen.
So Tim,
it's interesting that I think, Robert, you touched on a really interesting point there, and that's the efficiency issue. Every industry has been disrupted because of efficiencies that technology have been brought to bear on, except for design and construction.
Correct.
And if we don't do something to improve the efficiencies of this system, it's going to get disrupted.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's going to get disrupted by somebody who's going to throw a whole bunch of money at it. We've already seen it. You had, one of the examples was in your fair city. And that is just going to be tremendously disruptive for all of those practicing firms in design and construction that are out there that may or may not be able to survive that.
That's the real worry. I mean, we talk about it in our world, from the prefab cold form steel world, that we feel like very strongly that this is the direction, prefab's direction that's going, things are going, and you can build so much more accurate and fast and all that. And we talk about it from that aspect, but when we start trying to do that and do all that clash detection and all of that working together very, very early, and they go, oh, well, the plumber doesn't work in Revit, and the plumber doesn't do 3D modeling. It's like, well, what do you mean? So, it now throws that into it. Well, do we find another consultant? What do we do? So there's going to be people left behind.
But again, Robert, the key here is it's let's make sure the audience understands this. The modeling isn't the issue. Okay?
I agree. Yep.
The dissemination and recordation of who's got the most current model is the real issue.
The issue. Right.
So let's be clear. Concert is not a modeling solution. Concert is the digital recordation, dissemination, blockchain thing of here's the whole litany, like back to what Tim said, ones and zeros. But again, what I love about that is, let's go back to the paper person. Fine, if they still want the paper version, at least when they now are on a job with Concert, they know that at least they have the paper version that is the most accurate and up to date. That is just so much different, because remember when BIM and IPD came on the market and everyone was going nuts about it, it was still garbage in, garbage out, because no one knew what they were working off of, because there was no transactional, like a ledger, just like what blockchain is doing. There was no ledger of who's working on what, who's on first and what's on second.
You color-coded drawings,
Yeah.
Are you working on the pink set or the blue set, So, yeah.
Hey, I want to be conscientious of time here, but Tim, I'm curious. It just dawned on me. Have we been able? We haven't talked about the municipalities and the utility companies. I'm kind of macking out now. Have any of the large utility companies got on board with this? Because oh boy, do I see a total interaction with that with our AEC world. Can you opine on that?
Sure. So not only on the utility side, but roads and bridges, the flat work side.
Yes.
State DOTs are all over this. In fact, state DOTs are going to be far in front of the code jurisdictions in the cities.
Wow. Okay.
We've been talking to PennDOT about this, and they're almost across the board right now. State DOTs are requiring all of their consultants to work in BIM and to deliver BIM as a contract deliverable. And so the notion that they can actually have this official record that they can actually trace and have the chain of custody from all of that model information, they're just that's perfect for what they're trying to do. So yes, I think it's likely that if you want to generalize it to the civil side of the world, that there are components of that will adopt this a lot faster than the general building side. The general building side, it is difficult because it's so diverse.
True.
In terms of the size, type, quality of contractors, size, type, quality of designers and architects and professionals, it's a much more diverse market than you have in the heavy civil side.
Awesome. Well, JJ, do you have anything further?
No, I mean, I could probably talk for 2 more hours and ask crazy questions, but Tim, I just can't thank you enough. And but let's make sure that the audience knows the Concert. Can you give the full name so that people can search it online?
Sure.
Because I believe it's got a couple acronyms after it to make sure that Concert is different than Concert. So if you would, Tim, please quantify and qualify how to get a hold of you and your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.getconcert.com. Very simple, straightforward. There's lots of information that you can get from our website. Our LinkedIn, we're Concert VDC on LinkedIn, at Concert VDC. So you can find us on LinkedIn. We publish we do a weekly blog post and talk about issues in design and construction, and issues in terms of Web3, blockchain, even some discussions about cryptocurrency and kind of where that's all been. That's all part of what we post on our website and our LinkedIn page. It's it's an ever-changing environment, and it gives us a lot of opportunity to talk about things. Like I said, there's some big changes coming up in the model contracts that we're going to have a lot to say about in the coming months. I just put up my blog post this morning, so it's a new blog post on our website if you want to go see that.
Excellent. So folks can reach out to you through the webpage, through your people, any member of the team.
Yep.
Awesome.
We're a small team.
Yeah. Well, that's unbelievable stuff. I mean, yeah. Wow. I mean, we get to this point every time, and it's like, okay, here we go again. I don't want to repeat myself, but we could go on for hours and hours. Thank you very much for coming on and being our guest, Tim. We will absolutely do this again.
Happy to do it. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the questions. There's a lot of opportunity for the design and construction industry to make a major impact in our world, and I think we're here to make sure that we continue to push forward with the best ways to do that.
Awesome. All right, Daryl.
We appreciate you, Tim, for being a catalyst for that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Daryl, take us out of here.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Tory Contracting and Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and J.J. Levensky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in live every first and third Thursday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." Until next time, make it a great day.